The first time Ezra saw Liam, he was bleeding. Not the kind of blood that stains the skin, but the kind that seeps from a soul crushed under the weight of a world that refused to see him. Ezra, too, knew that kind of wound, though his were hidden beneath the polished veneer of a life he never chose. In the heart of New Orleans, where the air hung heavy with jasmine and secrets, Ezra Laurent stood on the balcony of the Montgomery estate, his wrists still raw from the velvet-lined cuffs he'd worn for 3 years as the pet of Crown Prince Julian Montgomery. The title was a cruel euphemism, a gilded cage for a man branded a disgrace. At 21, Ezra had been a rising star in the city's underground art scene, his paintings bold, his spirit untamed. But one reckless night, a scandal, whispered lies of treason and forbidden love, had stripped him of everything. Julian, heir to the Montgomery dynasty, a media empire that controlled half the nation's narrative, had offered him salvation, servitude in exchange for silence. Ezra, desperate and broken, had accepted. Now, at 24, he was reborn, or so he told himself. The cuffs were gone, but the weight of shame lingered. He leaned against the balcony railing, the Mississippi River glinting below, and wondered if freedom was just another lie. The gala inside buzzed with the elite, politicians, moguls, and influencers, all pawns in Julian's game. Ezra's role tonight was simple: smile, charm, and pretend he wasn't a ghost haunting his own life. Then he saw him. Across the crowded ballroom, Liam Carter stood out like a flame in a sea of shadows. Tall, with warm brown skin and hazel eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken stories, he moved with a quiet grace that didn't belong among the vultures. Liam, 26, was a journalist, new to the city, his byline already stirring trouble with exposés on the Montgomery dynasty's darker dealings. Ezra's heart stuttered. He knew Liam's name. Everyone did. The man was a walking rebellion, unafraid to challenge the empire that owned Ezra's soul. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world fell away. Liam's gaze was steady, not with pity but with something fiercer, recognition. Ezra felt exposed, as if Liam could see the chains no one else noticed. He turned away, heart pounding, but the seed of something dangerous had been planted. The next morning, Ezra woke to the buzz of his phone. A message from an unknown number. "Meet me at Café du Monde. 10 a.m. We need to talk." His pulse raced. Liam. It was reckless, stupid even, to meet a journalist who could unravel everything. But Ezra was tired of playing the prince's pet, tired of the lies. He went. The cafe was alive with the scent of beignet and chicory coffee. Liam sat at a corner table, his notebook open, a pen tapping against his lips. He looked up as Ezra approached, his smile warm but guarded. "You're braver than I thought," Liam said, voice low. "Not many would risk Julian's wrath to talk to me." Ezra slid into the seat across from him, his guard up. "What do you want, Carter?" "The truth," Liam said simply. "About you. About Julian. About what he's done to you." Ezra laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you can just waltz into New Orleans and take down the Montgomery Empire? You're dreaming." "Maybe," Liam said, leaning forward. "But I'm not here to save you, Ezra. I'm here to help you save yourself." The words hit like a punch. No one had ever spoken to Ezra like that. Not with hope, not with belief. For 3 years, he'd been a prop, a scandal to be managed. Liam's eyes, though, held no judgment, only a quiet challenge. Ezra wanted to hate him for it, but instead, he felt something stir, something he hadn't felt since before the cuffs. Over the next week, Ezra found himself drawn to Liam like a moth to a flame. They met in secret, dark alleys, quiet parks, the back booth of a jazz club where the music drowned out their words. Liam was relentless, asking questions Ezra didn't want to answer. "Why did you stay? What did Julian take from you?" Each question peeled back another layer of Ezra's armor, exposing the raw truth beneath. He'd stayed because he'd believed he deserved the shame. He'd stayed because the world had convinced him he was nothing without Julian's protection. Liam, though, saw something else. "You're not a disgrace," he said one night, his voice fierce as they sat on a bench by the river. "You're a survivor, and you're stronger than he'll ever be." Ezra wanted to believe him, but Julian's shadow loomed large. The prince had eyes everywhere, and Ezra knew the cost of defiance. Still, with Liam, he felt alive again, like the artist he'd once been, painting the world in colors no one else could see. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire, Liam reached for Ezra's hand. They were alone in a garden behind Liam's rented apartment, the air thick with the scent of magnolias. "You don't have to go back," Liam whispered. "You can choose yourself." Ezra's breath caught. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of a choice. But choice came with a price, and Julian Montgomery was not a man who let go easily. The gala had been a mistake. Ezra knew it the moment Julian's hand gripped his arm, pulling him into a private study. The prince's eyes were cold, his smile ablaze. "You've been spending time with that journalist," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Do you think I don't know?" Ezra's stomach twisted, but he held his ground. "I'm not your pet anymore, Julian." Julian laughed, a sound that chilled Ezra's blood. "You'll always be mine, Ezra. You think you can walk away? I made you. I can destroy you just as easily." The threat hung heavy, but Ezra thought of Liam, of his warmth, his belief, his unwavering courage. For the first time, he saw a path out of the cage. But the road to freedom was paved with danger, and Ezra wasn't sure he was strong enough to walk it. Ezra's defiance lingered like a spark in a dry forest, threatening to ignite everything he'd fought to keep buried. Julian's warning echoed in his mind as he slipped out of the Montgomery estate, the city's neon lights casting long shadows on the cobblestone streets. He needed to see Liam, to feel the grounding weight of his presence, but every step felt like a betrayal of the life he'd sworn to leave behind. Liam was waiting at their usual spot, a secluded corner of Jackson Square where street performers drowned out the world. His hazel eyes softened when he saw Ezra, but there was a tension in his jaw, a silent question. "You're shaking," Liam said, stepping closer. "What happened?" Ezra hesitated, the truth clawing at his throat. "Julian knows," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "About us. About you." Liam's expression hardened, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he took Ezra's hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles over the scars on Ezra's wrist. "He doesn't own you," Liam said, his voice steady. "No matter what he thinks." Ezra wanted to believe him, but fear was a chain heavier than any Julian had ever placed on him. "You don't know what he's capable of," he said, eyes darting to the shadows. "He'll ruin you, Liam. Your career, your life, everything." Liam's gaze didn't waver. "Let him try. I'm not afraid of him, Ezra. And you shouldn't be either." The words were a lifeline, but they also burned. Ezra had spent years surviving by bowing his head, by playing the role of the broken. Liam's courage was a mirror, reflecting the man Ezra could be, and the man he was terrified to become. Over the next few days, Ezra and Liam grew bolder, their meetings less cautious. They stole moments in crowded markets, shared coffee in the early morning light, and talked late into the night about dreams they'd both buried. Liam told Ezra about his childhood in Atlanta, growing up as the only black kid in a mostly white neighborhood, fighting to be seen as more than a stereotype. Ezra shared fragments of his own past, his mother's laughter, his first painting, the night Julian's men had dragged him from his studio, accusing him of crimes he didn't commit. Each conversation stitched them closer, but the danger grew with every stolen glance. Julian's spies were everywhere, their presence a constant reminder of the Empire's reach. One night, as Ezra and Liam walked through the French Quarter, a man in a dark coat followed them, his footsteps too deliberate to be chance. Liam noticed first, his hand tightening on Ezra's. "Keep walking," he murmured. "Don't look back." They ducked into a jazz club, the music a chaotic shield. Inside, Liam pulled Ezra into a corner, his breath warm against Ezra's ear. "We can't keep running," he said. "We need a plan." Ezra's heart pounded, torn between fear and the pull of Liam's resolve. "What kind of plan?" he asked, voice trembling. Liam's eyes burned with determination. "We expose him. Julian's built his empire on lies, corruption, blackmail, fear. I've been digging for months, Ezra. I have evidence, but I need your story to make it undeniable." The weight of Liam's words settled over Ezra like a storm. To speak out was to risk everything: his safety, his future, the fragile hope he'd found in Liam. But silence meant surrendering to Julian forever. "I don't know if I can," Ezra admitted, his voice breaking. Liam cupped Ezra's face, his touch gentle but firm. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm with you, Ezra. Always." The promise was a spark, igniting something fierce in Ezra's chest. For the first time, he imagined a life beyond the chains, a life where he could be whole, not a disgrace, but a man who loved and was loved in return. The plan took shape in stolen moments, whispered in the dark. Liam had files, documents, recordings, testimonies from others Julian had silenced. But Ezra's story was the key, the one piece that could topple the prince's throne. They worked in secret, Ezra recounting every detail of his years as Julian's pet, the manipulation, the threats, the nights he'd spent wondering if death was better than shame. Liam listened, his anger a quiet fire, but his touch always soft, grounding Ezra when the memories threatened to drown him. One night, as they sat in Liam's apartment, surrounded by papers and laptops, Ezra paused. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "You could walk away, write about something safer. Why risk everything for me?" Liam looked at him, his hazel eyes raw with emotion. "Because I see you, Ezra. Not the lies they've told about you, not the disgrace they branded you with. I see the man who's still fighting, even when he doesn't believe it himself. And I'm falling for him." The confession stole Ezra's breath. He'd never dared to name the warmth blooming in his chest, but Liam's words gave it shape. Love. It was fragile, dangerous, but undeniable. Ezra leaned forward, closing the distance, and kissed Liam. It was tentative at first, then desperate, a collision of fear and hope. The world could burn, but in that moment, they were untouchable. Their rebellion couldn't stay hidden forever. Julian struck back, swift and brutal. Ezra returned to the estate one evening to find his room ransacked, his paintings, his only refuge, slashed to ribbons. A note lay among the wreckage: "You can't run from me." Panic clawed at Ezra's chest, but it was Liam's voice in his head that steadied him. "You're stronger than he'll ever be." He called Liam, his voice shaking as he recounted the destruction. "He's coming for us," Ezra said. "We need to move faster." Liam was calm, resolute. "Then we do it now. We publish tomorrow. Are you ready?" Ezra closed his eyes, picturing the chains falling away. "I'm ready," he said, and for the first time he believed it. The morning of the expose broke like a storm over New Orleans. Ezra woke in Liam's apartment, the weight of their decision pressing against his ribs. Today, they would tear down Julian's empire, or be destroyed trying. Liam was already at his desk, his laptop open, the article ready to go live. The headline was stark: "The Montgomery Dynasty, a legacy built on lies." Ezra's story was the heart of it, woven with Liam's evidence, financial records, leaked emails, and testimonies from others Julian had crushed. Ezra read the draft, his throat tight. Seeing his pain laid bare in black, and white was both liberating and terrifying. Once this goes out, he said, voice low, there's no going back. Liam turned to him, his expression fierce. Good. You deserve to be free, Ezra. We both do. They hit publish at 8 a.m. Within hours, the internet exploded. News outlets picked up the story, social media buzzed with outrage, and the Montgomery name, once untouchable, became a lightning rod. Ezra's phone vibrated with notifications, support, hate, threats. He turned it off, his heart racing. Liam reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. We did it, Liam said, his voice a mix of triumph and fear. But Julian wasn't a man to fall quietly. By noon, his team had launched a counterattack, press releases calling Liam a liar, Ezra a traitor. Old scandals were dredged up, twisted to paint Ezra as unstable, a danger. The weight of it threatened to crush him, but Liam was there, a steady anchor. They're scared, Liam said. This is what truth does to people like him. That evening, they hid in a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a small cabin owned by one of Liam's contacts. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the hum of cicadas outside. Ezra paced, his mind spinning. What if this isn't enough, he asked. What if he wins? Liam stood, crossing the room to stop Ezra's restless movement. He won't. Not this time. You're not alone anymore. Ezra looked into Liam's eyes, seeing the man who'd risked everything for him. The man who'd seen him, not as a disgrace, but as someone worth fighting for. Without thinking, Ezra pulled Liam close, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of desperation and hope. It was a promise, a vow to face whatever came next together. The moment shattered when Liam's phone buzzed. A contact at the newsroom. They found us, Liam said, his voice tight. Julian's men. They're coming. Panic surged, but Ezra forced it down. What do? We fight, Liam said, already grabbing his laptop and files. We get this to more people, every outlet, every platform. They can't silence us if the world knows. They worked frantically, uploading backups to secure servers, sending copies to trusted journalists. As headlights flashed through the cabin's windows, Ezra's heart pounded, but he felt a strange calm. For the first time, he wasn't running. He was standing his ground. The door burst open, and two men in dark suits stormed in. Ezra recognized one, Vincent, Julian's enforcer, a man with eyes like a shark's. You've made a mess, Ezra, Vincent said, his voice cold. Time to clean it up. Liam stepped forward, shielding Ezra. You're too late. The story's out. You can't bury it. Vincent smirked, pulling a gun from his coat. Stories die. So do people. Ezra's blood ran cold, but Liam didn't flinch. You pull that trigger, and you prove everything we've said. The world's watching, Vincent. You can't win this. For a moment, the room was still, the air crackling with tension. Then Vincent lowered the gun, his smirk fading. This isn't over, he said, backing toward the door. Julian doesn't forget. As the men retreated, Ezra's knees buckled. Liam caught him, pulling him into a fierce embrace. We're okay, Liam whispered. We're okay. But they weren't safe. Not yet. They fled the cabin, driving through the night to a new hiding spot, a friend's loft in Baton Rouge. There, they watched the fallout unfold. Protests erupted outside Montgomery headquarters. Demands for investigations grew louder, and Julian's empire began to crack. In the quiet of the loft, Ezra and Liam sat together, exhaustion and hope warring in their hearts. I didn't think I could do this, Ezra admitted, his voice soft. Not without you. Liam smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Ezra's face. You're stronger than you know. You always were. Ezra leaned into him, the warmth of Liam's presence a balm to his wounds. For the first time, he believed he could be more than the disgrace Julian had branded him. He could be a man who fought, who loved, who lived. But the war wasn't over. Julian was wounded, not defeated, and his wrath was a storm waiting to break. Ezra knew the cost of freedom would be high, but with Liam by his side, he was ready to pay it. The days that followed were a blur of safe houses, encrypted messages, and the constant hum of fear. Ezra and Liam moved like ghosts, staying one step ahead of Julian's reach. The world was watching now, the Montgomery dynasty's cracks exposed for all to see, but Julian was a predator backed into a corner, dangerous and desperate. In a cramped motel room on the edge of Mobile, Alabama, Ezra and Liam pored over the latest news. The FBI had launched an investigation into Montgomery's finances, spurred by Liam's evidence and public pressure. Protesters filled the streets of New Orleans, their signs demanding justice. Ezra's story had become a rallying cry, a symbol of resistance against power that fed on silence. But with every victory, the danger grew. Julian's allies were circling, and Ezra knew the prince wouldn't stop until he'd silenced them for good. "We can't keep running forever," Ezra said, his voice heavy. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hands trembling. "He'll find us." Liam knelt in front of him, taking Ezra's hands in his. "Then we stop running. We face him. Together." Ezra searched Liam's eyes, finding the same fierce determination that had pulled him from the darkness. "I'm scared," he admitted, the words raw. "But I'm done letting him control me." Liam's smile was soft, a beacon in the storm. "That's my Ezra," he said, leaning in to kiss him. It was a kiss that held everything: fear, love, the promise of a future they'd fight for. Their chance came sooner than expected. A contact in the resistance, a hacker named Maya, uncovered a lead. Julian was hosting a secret meeting with his inner circle at a remote estate in the Louisiana bayou. It was a chance to catch him off guard, to record his own words and bury him for good. But it was a trap as much as an opportunity, and Ezra knew it. "We don't have to go," Liam said as they planned in Maya's safe house, a cluttered apartment filled with monitors and coffee cups. "We can keep pushing from here, keep the pressure on." Ezra shook his head. "No. He needs to see me. He needs to know I'm not his anymore." Liam's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Then we do it together. No matter what." The plan was simple but perilous. Infiltrate the estate, plant recording devices, and get out before Julian's men could react. Maya would handle the tech, Liam the logistics, and Ezra the confrontation. He needed to face Julian, to break the chains once and for all. The bayou was a world of shadows, the air thick with the scent of moss and decay. The estate loomed like a fortress, its lights cutting through the fog. Ezra's heart pounded as they slipped past security, Maya's hacks disabling cameras just long enough for them to move. Inside, the air was heavy with cigar smoke and arrogance, Julian's allies laughing as if the world wasn't burning around them. Ezra found Julian in a study, his back to the door, staring at a portrait of himself. The prince turned, his eyes narrowing. "You're bolder than I thought," he said, his voice smooth but laced with venom. "Or stupider." Ezra stood tall, his voice steady. "I'm not your pet anymore, Julian. I'm not your disgrace. I'm free." Julian laughed, stepping closer. "Free? You'll never be free. You're nothing without me." But Ezra wasn't alone. Liam stepped into the room, a recorder in his hand, its red light blinking. "He's everything," Liam said, his voice a quiet blade. "And the world knows it now." Julian's face twisted with rage, but before he could act, alarms blared. Maya's voice crackled through their earpieces. "They're on to us. Get out now." The escape was chaos, gunfire, shouting, the bayou swallowing their footsteps as they ran. Liam's hand never left Ezra's, pulling him through the darkness. They made it to the boat Maya had waiting, speeding through the swamp as Julian's men gave chase. Ezra's heart raced, but he felt alive, unburdened. He'd faced his captor and walked away. Weeks later, the world had changed. Julian's empire crumbled under the weight of indictments and public outrage. The recordings from the estate were the final nail, his own words damning him beyond repair. Ezra and Liam watched it unfold from a small apartment in Seattle, a city far from the ghosts of New Orleans. They were safe, for now, but the scars remained. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Ezra sat with Liam on the couch, a sketchpad in his lap. He was drawing again, his hands steady for the first time in years. The page held a portrait of Liam, his hazel eyes captured in soft charcoal lines. "What's this?" Liam asked, leaning over. "You," Ezra said simply. "The man who gave me back my life." Liam's smile was radiant, his hand finding Ezra's. "You did that yourself. I just reminded you how." They kissed, slow and certain, the weight of their journey settling into something new. Hope, love, a future they'd build together. Ezra had been branded a disgrace, chained by a prince who thought he could own a soul. But he was reborn, not as a pet, but as a man who chose himself, who chose love, who swore never to take those chains again. The world outside was still messy, still dangerous. But in that moment, with Liam's warmth against him, Ezra knew they'd face it together. And that was enough.